So I'm Chris Kalinda. It's great to have you with us today for this webinar about winning the first battle of your transition to your next career. So if you haven't taken the poll yet, please go ahead and do that. Let us know what your number one transition concern is. A couple of rules for the webinar. First one is, if you've got any questions, just go ahead and pose them in, or answers, because we're going to do some interactive stuff. So go ahead and post your answers and stuff in the chat room. If you've got a question, there's also a Q&A. I see somebody has already done the Q&A. And my COO and wife, Nicole Kaus, is monitoring the chat room and the Q&A room. So at periodic times, or when we have the interactions, then I'll ask her to do her thing and let us know what's going on. So Nicole, what do we have in the Q&A room right now?
Yeah, we have a question. As a 30-year-old generalist, how do I compete against civilians that have been developed as specialists?
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, we are going to get into that, and we'll get into it even more in the Q&A if if you wish. So that is like the $64,000 question, and we're going to help you tackle just that. Look, all of the different steps and shifts that I'm going to talk about today are things that I screwed up myself during my own transition. So yeah, I went through the TAP and the ETAP, and were kind of not very helpful. And so I kind of went through the school of hard knocks, and I just wound up taking the Nike solution and starting my own business, and it went really well. But I'll share some of those experiences with you, and also some experiences, things I've learned from others who have gone through this. And the bottom line is, we all want people to make new mistakes. So, and the best way to make new mistakes is to learn from others. So not only do we avoid repeat mistakes on ourselves, but we avoid repeating the errors that other people made. So that's the best way to make genuinely new mistakes. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so I am going to share my screen. So you're going to be able to see the slides. And we're going to move through this pretty, at a good clip, because I know your time is valuable. And then we are going to get to your questions. All right, so in terms of, let's see, poll results. What are your number one transition concern? Tie for finding a second career that I love and finding the right balance. And we had one person who said, you know what, I want high paying benefits. So that's great news, just to kind of see where you are at. So I'm going to end the poll and crack on through the next slide. Okay, there we go. All right, we can actually share the results, but I just read them to you, so we don't need to do that. Okay, so in this webinar, we are going to think strategically about your second career, your second half of your professional life. Going to help you avoid wasting away in dead end or toxic jobs that just kind of suck the life out of you. And a lot of people who take the approach, I just need a job, wind up in these dead end situations. We're going to help you get out of the resume interview rejection cycle that a lot of people find themselves in. And part of that has to do with these 5 mindset shifts that we're going to discuss that are going to help you chart a smart course throughout your transition. Okay, so this webinar is for senior military leaders, so people who've been in the military for 20 plus years, people who are serious about a second career of impact and results, and people who are coachable. All right, not anybody who's like entitled. People don't owe you a job, of course, and don't owe any of us a job just because we served in the military. We have to help them understand the value that we bring to their organizations in ways that are compelling to them. Okay, so if that sounds like you're a senior military leader, you're serious about a second career of high impact, and you're coachable, this is exactly the right place for you. Does this sound like you? Hey, I want a second career where I'm making an impact and I'm actually of service to others. That I'm willing to invest in myself to take an approach that is going to position me to be successful in this transition? Are you sick of bad advice or advice that applies to like most veterans or most people leaving the military, but not to you? And tired of your sort of typical transition programs that teach you how to dress, tell you how to do an interview, make you write a resume, but really don't help people like us. So if that sounds like you, once again, you're in the right spot. All right, first interaction. Which picture best describes what you are feeling right now about your transition? So I am going to show a collage of pictures and just let me know which picture best describes how you're feeling right now about your transition. Okay, there's the pictures. Yeah, just let me know. How do you feel about your transition right now? Which picture best describes that? Yeah, just type your answers in the chat room. What picture is it and like why? Yeah, just kind of a brief kind of description of why you chose that picture. Okay, I get to see we got some stuff coming in the chat room. Nicole, what do you see?
We've got John says the cloud and lightning. Candace, the open eye, looking ahead. Gordon, storm clouds on the horizon, but easily dealt with, but unknown. Again, cloud and lightning, tumultuous environment. Jason, the mountains, where I'm headed next.
All right. That's no, that's really awesome. And I mean, it makes total sense. I mean, there are a lot of uncertainty on the horizon. Don't know what's next. A lot of hope at the same time as we look forward, but always some trepidation with a change this big. And I mean, look what we're doing. We are going from the top of one profession, and we're going to come into, hopefully the top or somewhere near it in a completely different profession. I mean, we can all probably go into defense contracting or something like that. But my hunch is that you're probably not here if that is your sort of default choice. That you're looking maybe to do something different other than defense consulting. And there's nothing wrong with that, or government consulting. There's nothing wrong with that. And for a lot of people, it's exactly the right answer. But we're going to help you kind of discover that. But for a number of us, hey, we want to do something different. We want to make an impact in a very different way. And we're going to show you how to do that and be successful. Okay, so why do you need this? Hey, look, we're not the ideal veterans. I mean, when you look at the transition programs, they are modeled for the 95% of the people who are leaving the military every month. And that's your first and 1 and 2 term enlistees. That's your junior military officers. And I know at least in the Army, there are flag rank sort of transition courses. But for people in the kind of 05 to maybe 08 level, there's not a whole lot. Or for the senior master sergeant, the E8 and E9, if you will, there's not a whole lot for us. And when you look at from an employer standpoint, they like the junior trooper who did a turn in Afghanistan, drove a truck in Iraq, or the junior military officer, because they've got a lot of runway. They can, you can train them. They don't cost a whole lot to hire. And because they're coming in at a junior level, they don't have a huge impact on the organization. We're a much higher risk hire. And part of it is they look at us and say, well, 40 something, early 50 something, maybe they don't have a lot of runway. And if we're going to put them in at a high level, that's a very high salary. That means there's much higher risk to this hire. So anybody who wants to be seen as veteran friendly tends to take the low risk approach, go for the junior military officer, the 1 or 2 term enlisted soldier, but they've got a hard time knowing what to do with people like us. Yeah, and I mentioned high risk. So check this out. The cost of employee turnover is somewhere between 50% and 200% of an employee's annual salary. So the higher it is, the closer it gets to 200%. So if somebody's going to hire you at $200,000 and they lose you within, a year to 18 months, which is normally the sort of cyclic rate, not only do they lose that salary, but then they've got to recruit another person and pay that salary. So it's essentially a $400,000 bet or more that you're going to work out. And then, oh, by the way, they don't know if you're like a George Patton, sort of wannabe, the toxic George Patton in Sicily wannabe, somebody who's going to create this toxic work environment, do as I say, not as I do, very sort of loud and obnoxious and abrasive. And so they don't know that. But what they do know is that employee turnover is a huge cost to them. Employee disengagement is a huge cost to them. And if they bring a leader in who creates that sort of disengagement or creates a toxic work environment, then they lose even more money. Workplace incivility costs the average employer about $14,000 per employee. So hiring somebody like us is like a $500,000 bet, and nobody's going to take that lightly. Second is, the second reason why you need a strategic approach to your next career is it's really important to find your next calling. The people who don't wind up spending the second half of their professional life looking back on the first. And I tell you, that would be just a sad position to be in, where you don't have anything to look forward to. You just look back on everything. And I mean, what we've done in a career of 20, 25, 30 years has been absolutely remarkable. And for the lion's share of us, any employer would be lucky to have us. But it's important not to just look back and have nothing to look forward to. So when you think about what is my next calling, what's the next calling, what's my vocation for my second half, that becomes hugely important, because then you're looking forward to the kind of impact that you're making. You're not just looking back on a career that you love. You deserve to have a second half that you love just as much or more than the first, and we're going to help you do that. Okay, so the key is, in your next calling, turning your past achievements into your future. And these mindset shifts that we're going to talk about are key ways to do that. Okay, so look, it really takes a strategic approach to do this, right? I mean, otherwise, the tactics without strategy, you're in the hamster wheel. And it's the write your resume, spray and pray it all over social media, get some interviews, get rejected, and then go through the whole process again. So if you've been in the resume interview rejection hamster wheel, or somebody who's been in the interview resume interview rejection hamster wheel, just type in hamster wheel in the chat room. All right, here we go. Hamster wheel's coming in. I have seen so many people in the hamster wheel. I have known people. I even took a turn in the hamster wheel myself, and then finally said, screw it, I'm starting my own business. But if I knew what I know now, I'm not sure I had the guts to do it. But I did. It was the best decision I ever made business-wise. Okay, so we want to get you out of the hamster wheel and help you avoid the hamster wheel. So what you need are the right guideposts. You need the right azimuth that you can follow. And really, the right azimuth that you're going to follow is the one that you create yourself. And what I want to do is just kind of help you do that, because frankly, people with our backgrounds and experiences just have so much to offer. And I hate seeing people meeting my classmates, my peers, people I went through the military with, just have the 1,000-yard stare. And I've seen it time and again. In fact, the reason why I created Strategic Leaders Academy, see the logo on the background, is one of my West Point classmates, I met him in the hallway at Crystal City, you know, kind of the subterranean areas. And the poor guy, I mean, he just had the 1,000-yard stare. And I said, hey, what's up? Yeah, I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. And he gave me this sort of answer that I hear so many times, like, hey, you know, I wanted to, you know, I was getting out and I wanted to get into the private sector. And then I just found so many doors closed. I was too expensive. I didn't have enough experience. I didn't have any leadership experience. And you know, and so I was closed, you know, I couldn't get into the small businesses because I was too expensive. And the big businesses I interviewed with, I'd sort of make it all the way through the final round of interviews and oops, we're moving in another direction. And he said, finally, you know, I just had to settle. And he settled for some government contracting job. And he absolutely hates it, you know, traveling all the time, 1,000-yard stare, you know, not in good physical shape anymore. And so with a much more strategic approach than just taking the first job that you can find, you're going to be able to find the right guideposts. And the key is you got to make them yourselves, because ultimately the second career has got to be about what works best for you and your family. Okay, so why listen to me? Well, because I've walked a mile in your shoes. I had my share of transition challenges. I didn't take a strategic approach to it. I just figured, you know, shoot, you know, I'll get hired pretty easily, you know, with all the experiences I've had and the people I've worked with. And it just didn't happen that way. And so, you know, I recognized the need to fail fast. And so I did and started my own business, and I just became very fortunate. But also through that, I've been able to work with a lot of businesses and a lot of nonprofits, not as an HR person, but as a business consultant. So I understand the challenges that they have. I understand what they're looking for in leaders, what problems that they're trying to solve. And so I know how to take the kind of experiences that we've had in the military and help you translate those into language that is compelling to people who you want to work with. And so that's you know, that's kind of what this is all about. And I've also interviewed tons of people. So Strategic Leaders Academy, we're a leadership consulting franchise. Everybody's got to be a former senior military leader to join SLA. And so I talked to tons of people, and I hear the same sort of transition challenges all the time. And so, you know, I know, you know, I know what you're going through in that standpoint too. And as a person who brings people into an organization, it gives me a perspective on what people are looking for. So that's how I can be helpful. Okay, so here's a client testimonial. Speaking of one of my business clients, so here's a client testimonial who I helped solve, you know, problems using my background to help him solve some key problems. So I'll just let you take. I know we got somebody, at least one person calling in, so I'll just read this to you. So we faced major problems. Revenues were in free fall. Employees were pulling in different directions. There was little integration and no progress. Thanks to Chris's support, our management and governance are highly integrated. We now have very high degrees of engagement, accountability, and employee ownership. So Chris's experience, knowledge, and sensitivity led to a strategy that created $2 million annually in new revenue. So that was from Jim Thaden, the executive director of the Central Asia Institute. So the bottom line is what you've done matters, and it matters to businesses. We just got to help them see it. Okay, so part of helping them see it is to undergo 5 mindset shifts. And these all sort of represent expensive mistakes that I made in some way, shape, or form. And that could be expensive in terms of money, time, or, you know, frustration. But these 5 mindset shifts are key to approaching the second career that you love, because, you know, the way that we're successful in the military, as one person mentioned in the Q&A, like being a generalist, I can go anywhere, do anything. Okay, it's got to be different in the private sector. Okay, so these are the 5 mindset shifts, moving from generalist to specialist. from paycheck to vocation, moving from experience to value, moving from spray and pray to sniper, and finally moving from imposter to expert. So let's drill down in each one of these. So once you make these 5 shifts, of course, you're going to have the best possible chances of success in finding a second career that you love, to finding that right work-life balance. And quite frankly, those both kind of fit together. Those are the majority of the answers from the poll that we took. Okay, so first one is moving from generalist to specialist. So in the military, we are trained to be generalists, right? Our flag ranks are even called generals because they're generalists. We remove the specialist brass off of our uniforms, and it's just general because we're a generalist. We can do everything. We can contribute anyway. And that's how we're educated, trained, and developed in the military. And one of the mistakes I personally made when I was going to do an interview is people would say, hey, so what do you do? It's like, I can do anything. Like, well, such as what? Well, let's see, I'm really good at strategy. I can lead people okay. Culture, I can do. You want me to do research? You want me to train people? You want me to do operations? You want me to do plans? And I can just see the person sort of had, sort of things banging around inside the head. And the bottom line is, everybody I did that, they liked me, but they didn't know what to do with me. Because when you're a generalist, people don't know what to do with you. And I see this, on LinkedIn profiles all the time. I see so many of our peers, with the LinkedIn profile says, leader, strategist, motivator, culture expert, planner, strategic planner, it's all these slashes. And for the private sector, it just looks like, hey, this person's just throwing a bunch of crap on the wall and is going to see what sticks. I don't trust this person because I don't know what their expertise is. Okay, so it's like, who do you want performing your heart surgery? Do you want a general practitioner or do you want the cardiologist? Okay, and everybody, I think, is going to say, I want the cardiologist to do heart surgery for me or one of my loved ones because that's their specialty. That's their expertise. And so one of the things that we need to be able to do to transition successfully is go through a little reflective period. What exactly do we need to do? Or what exactly do we want to do? What kind of impact do we want to make? And then look back on our career and say, okay, well, where's my expertise? Maybe my expertise is in building teams and improving employee engagement, for instance. Maybe my expertise is in culture. Maybe my expertise is in doing planning for organizations. So the key, though, is to hone in on the kind of career field, if you will, or second career that really sort of speaks to your why. We'll get this into this in just a second. And then look back on your career about, hey, what are ways that I have been able to, what are some of the expertises that I have developed that will help me make an impact in this second career? Okay, so this leads to the next one, paycheck to vocation. So where would you rather be? Would you want to shovel sand for $1 million? That's all you did every day, 12 hours a day, 18 hours a day. In fact, you had to travel to do it all the time, and all you did was shovel sand from one pile to another. Is that what you want to do? And for some people, that may be the right answer. Or do you want to have a second career that you love, where maybe you're making a little bit less pay, but what you are getting in terms of work balance and the impact that you're making, the good that you're doing, is highly fulfilling. And you've got to answer that kind of question for yourself. One of the ways that we do that is through a little bit of introspection. So we're all hardwired in certain ways, and I'm not talking about MBTI sort of hardwiring, but we're hardwired in certain ways in terms of how we serve and lead organizations. So at Strategic Leaders Academy, we call it your PROM servant leader archetype. So PROM stands for the 4 leader archetypes: pioneers, reconcilers, operators, and mavericks. And we each serve our organizations in different ways. Like pioneers are highly innovative, reconcilers are your kind of team and consensus builders, operators is people who like nail the details and get stuff done, and mavericks are people who like to think through and solve big wicked problems. So first, understanding our who and how we serve organizations is part of this calculus on a vocation. The second is our how. So what are the values, what are the principles that are really important to us? One of the mistakes I see people make a lot is, they'll just take the job and not take the time to think through, what kind of workplace culture do I want? What kind of values do I want this organization, want my second career to advance? And so they wind up either being in a place that has this sort of, eye roll, like they just can't stand it because it's just too goofy for them, or that grates on their sense of personal values. And of course, everybody can see if your heart's not in it, if your values aren't aligned. So thinking through those values first and what kind of culture you want to be in is really important. And then of course is your why. So your compelling sense of purpose, the thing that drives you every day, the impact that you want to make. In fact, whenever people call me about SLA, the first question I ask them is, what kind of impact do you want to make in your second career? And that generally starts a pretty rich conversation. So when you're working at the intersection of your who, your how, and your why, you are in a place of authenticity. And you are doing something that you love. You're doing something that you're proud to do. You're doing something that plays to your natural strengths. And as a result, your personal engagement is going to go way up. Your personal joy and energy are going to go way up. And the contribution that you are going to make to that organization, to that cause, to that mission is going to be extraordinary. When you work outside of that, then all of those numbers go in the wrong direction. And when you think about it, we're going from just, hey, I got to get a paycheck to, hey, how am I going to serve? Daniel Pink's got a really good book called Drive. And he says, look, it's about 3 things. Drive, personal motivation, about the intersection of autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So autonomy. How much autonomy do you want to have? Do you want to be a solo entrepreneur? Or do you want to be like in a big structure and hierarchy? Kind of like we grew up in the military, in a big structure and hierarchy. Is that where you want to be? Do you want to be more on your own, or is there somewhere in between? What do you love to? What's the mastery? What kind of subjects do you want to master? Is it like leadership stuff? Is it planning? Is it finance? Is it construction? I mean, what is it? What are you going to completely nerd out on and love doing it? And then for what purpose? What's the higher purpose that you want to serve? I mean, we've been serving for one purpose, and we'll continue doing that for the rest of our lives. Career, a lifetime of service is what we all signed up for. It's just going to look differently now. And then there's also other considerations, right? So how much time we want to spend with our family? Do I want to be on the road 250 days of the year, traveling all the time? Or do I want to spend a lot more time with my family? It means maybe, something more local and not traveling. What sort of impact? What do I want to do with my community? This is a very different thing, where, when you're in a community, you kind of want to, in the private sector, you kind of want to contribute to it, make a difference. And then what about my other interests? Do I like to play golf? Do I like to, hunt, fish? What do I like? What do I really enjoy doing? And so that balance, that we were talking about, that so many people you found, so many of you said were really important to you. It's about these 6 things. And when you are serving, when you're in a position of authenticity, when your second career intersects with your who, your how, and your why, you're going to be able to find this kind of balance. Okay, oh, client testimonial. So yeah, this stuff is important in the private sector. So this is Michelle Flournoy, former boss of mine who may be the next Secretary of Defense. SLA, Strategic Leaders Academy, gave us a framework to discuss the ways that people lead differently and how we celebrate that diversity as we build commitment to a common culture. So this is already benefiting our retention, engagement, and morale. And while you're listening to this, if you have questions along the way, just type them in the Q&A or put something in the chat room. And I'll, Nicole will help us out. So Nicole, do you got anything in the chat or the Q&A from folks?
No questions so far, Chris.
Okay, awesome. Oh, another client testimonial about this intersection over your who and your how and your why. So the leader archetypes, she's talking about, pioneers, reconcilers, operators, mavericks. So your who have given me a framework to think about leader diversity and what natural inclinations people bring to the table. It's also helped me communicate more effectively and develop action plans with my team and our clients. So this piece about knowing your servant leader archetype, being comfortable in your own skin, being authentic is essential on both sides of the equation, whether you are a business leader and looking to boost your performance, or you're an employee just looking to love what you do. Okay, so the third mind shift is moving from experience to value. So if you were getting somebody to, I don't know, fix plumbing in your house and you had a choice between two people, one person who said, yeah, I've been a plumber for 30 years. I got 30 years of experience. I can fix your plumbing. And somebody else who said, hey, I got 5 years of experience, but let me show you all of these client testimonials, who said what an awesome job that I did. And oh, by the way, here's some of the return on investment that I've been able to do. So I haven't had to, there's been no, I don't have any bad reviews like on the Better Business Bureau. And people say, hey, he fixed it and it stayed fixed. Or she was such a pleasure to work with. And I refer her to all of my friends who have plumbing issues. So which one would you hire? The one with 30 years of experience or the one that has been able to show good outcomes? And of course, you're going to hire the person who you believe is going to bring value. And so one of the challenges that I faced, and one of the challenges that so many of us face, because we've done such extraordinary things for the last 20 to 30 years, is we tend to focus on our experience. Well, I did this, and I did that, and I did the other thing. And it doesn't compute into anything compelling in the private sector. I mean, all of our experiences, I was a company commander, I was a operations officer, I was a battalion commander, I was a brigade commander. I went to the war college and did this, that, and the other thing. I mean, that's important in the military because we automatically associate that with a certain level of value and selections and all of this stuff. It doesn't mean anything in the private sector because they don't know all of that. So what we have to do is stop talking about our experience and talk about the kind of value that we have brought in those experiences. And this is a really important mind shift to make. I mean, in the private sector, the people who are ineffective just talk about their experience. Oh, I got 30 years of experience doing this. The people who are moderately successful talk about their credentials. I've got a master's degree. I've got, all of these little certificates behind my name. I've got a PhD. The people who are really successful in the private sector talk about value, and they talk about value that they can bring to others. And so what we have got to do is find ways, learn ways to take our experiences that we've had in the military and the outcomes that we've achieved and be able to translate those into language, into value that is compelling in the private sector. Okay, so here's some examples. ways to think about it. So according to Gallup, 67% of Americans report being unengaged at work. That means 2/3 of their time, they're doing things at work other than being productive, other than contributing to growth. Now that could mean time wasted in meetings. It could be time wasted in rework. It could be, anxiety over toxic work behavior, all this stuff. And of course, now with COVID-19 and people working from home, employee disengagement is an even bigger concern. I mean, if you've got young children at home and now you're working at home, I mean, young children are very needy. And so employees are being pulled in a lot of different directions. So that number, we're going to see that a disengagement rate is going to be even higher. But imagine if you turn those numbers around. Imagine if you were able to create a workplace environment in which 2/3 of your people said they are engaged at work in productive activity. That is going to have a huge difference impact on the bottom line. So for instance, let's say, just to make the math easy, say you got $1 million payroll. If 7% of your employees are disengaged at work, that means, in a nutshell, that 2/3 of your payroll, so $670,000 out of $1 million payroll, are just completely down the drain in unproductive work, unproductive time. And so if you could turn those numbers around, you're always going to have some disengagement, but if you could turn those numbers around, so $670,000 of your payroll are going towards productivity and growth, you've essentially saved a company of $1 million, a small company, 300 and what, do the math, $330,000. That's an extraordinary piece of value. 75% of employees, according to Gallup, who leave their jobs voluntarily, report doing so to get away from their managers. Extraordinary. 2/3 of people who leave voluntarily say they want to get away from their managers. So employee turnover is one of the biggest costs of any organization. Somewhere, according to a Harvard Business Review study, 50 to 200% of employees' annual value. So again, if you're hired at $200,000, that person turns over, it's going to cost another $200,000, maybe $300,000 to find a replacement for that person. And then you got to pay their salary. So this sort of revolving door is a huge consumer of resources. So as we look back on our careers, how are our reenlistment rates? How well have our subordinates done in the military? Did they keep getting selected and promoted? Are our reenlistment rates, our retention rates higher than the norm? Do you have testimonials in like your OERs and stuff like that, your NCOERs that show that? That is a way to start putting together your value and the expertise that you bring. And of course, we're all really good at leading through crises. If you've had to lead people, command organizations through 9, 12, 15-month deployments, you know how to lead through a crisis. Okay, shift number 4, from spray and pray to sniper. So again, part of the, when we talk about value, one of the things that we work on in this course I'm going to tell you about is how to put together an authentic value proposition. So your resume tends to look back at your experiences. Your authentic value proposition looks forward into the impact that you're going to make on an employer. And so this AVP, this authentic value proposition, becomes really, really important. And it's going to help you get out of the spray and pray. So, like many of us, okay, I had my resume, I nerded out on it, I made it look really nice and pretty, and then bam, it was like a death blossom of resumes, like all over social media and job sites and stuff like that. Now, we didn't have all back in 2014, we didn't have as many Gucci job search engine sites that we do now, like Indeed and all of these other things. Um, and here's what happens. Your resume goes into that big machine and nobody knows what to do with it. It's not hitting the different bells and whistles. And even if it is, what is eventually going to fall out of that is probably, and it's unlikely that you're going to find something that intersects with the who and the how and the why. So the spray and pray marketing, it's a total waste of energy. It doesn't work. What we need to do is be like the sniper. So once we start identifying, hey, here's the kind of field, second career I want to be in. Here's the kind of roles that I can really thrive, that play to my natural strengths. Here's the kind of culture I want to be in. Then you start doing the research. You're like a sniper. LinkedIn is great for this, in particular, but you start doing the research of the kind of people and the kind of organizations that you want to be in. You put yourself in a position to interact with them, and then you're able to engage them effectively. You're able to gain referrals from them. And of course, we show you a great way to kind of go through all of that, because word of mouth from credible person to credible person is going to be one of your most powerful ways of finding that second career that you love and finding the right role in the right company in the right career, so you gain that kind of balance and impact that you're looking for. Okay, another client testimonial. This is from Dustin Smith. And this talks a little bit about the training that we do. So, hey, Chris is easy to work with. Leaders have so much on their plate, so having somebody easy to work with who listens and is interested in solely in helping us achieve our goals was terrific and made it easy. Our conversion rates have increased, so revenues have already increased for about 10%. Ownership at mid-level has made our C-level jobs easier. We can focus on strategic challenges and not have to worry about internal problems. So that's Dustin Smith, Chief Operating Officer of Aspire Allergy and Sinus. And again, this is, stuff that we all know how to do, that is providing value to, to organizations. These are the kind of problems. The reason why I'm showing these testimonials is these are the kind of challenges and problems that business leaders are looking to solve. Nicole, pause here, see if we have any questions in the Q&A or the chat.
Yeah, we have one question from Kevin. Is there a magic translator that helps you translate some of the PMEs that we have all attended to help get our thoughts on changing our resume going?
Yeah, Kevin, that's a great question. Yeah, I wish there were, quite frankly. And one of the things that I see a lot, and it breaks my heart, is somebody who will say, okay, so I was company commander. And then they'll put like company commander, or they'll put CEO, like either in brackets, or they'll just say, I was CEO of X. As an S3, I was chief operating officer of Y, or whatever. Garrison commander, I was the city manager, I was the mayor. And no, you weren't. All right, now, so stop it. Because everybody knows that. Everybody knows that a company commander and a CEO, or a battalion commander, brigade commander, CEO, are very different things. As a brigade commander, battalion commander, you're going to potentially lead people into combat. You're responsible for their lives, not as a CEO, but as a CEO, you got to make payroll. You got to turn a profit. People's livelihoods are depending on your decisions. People's lives might be depending on your decisions as a battalion commander, but not necessarily their livelihoods, because Uncle Sam's paying them. So, these are all different calculations. And when I see people, and when the people in the private sector see people who are clearly in the military trying to translate or trying to say, commander and CEO are equivalent things, it comes across as shady and insincere. So instead, just say we did. But one of the things that to do, and we talk about this in our course, we go through a process in our courses, is to look at our backgrounds and look at what people are saying about us, and then translate that into value that helps businesses solve their problems. And that's the trick behind the authentic value proposition. So it's it's not a decoder necessarily, but what it is you being able to talk about the outcomes that you have achieved, not the experiences you've had, but the outcomes that you've been able to achieve in ways that are show that you can help a business solve their problems. Thanks, Kevin. That was an awesome question. Okay, number 5 is going from imposter to expert. So look, one of the challenges that I faced, that everybody faces going through transition, is self-limiting beliefs. I don't know if I can make it in the private sector. I've never had to deal with a balance sheet. Will people respond to me? Is anybody going to want to hire me? I don't understand sales. I don't know how to do marketing. So there's all of these self-limiting beliefs that can hold us back, and can also limit us as we get into salary negotiations. I mean, in the military, we've never had to negotiate for a salary. It's always very clear. If you serve at this rank for this long, you get this much. It's really cut and dry. In the private sector, it's not. And so a lot of people wind up going into jobs not understanding how to negotiate, not knowing that things are kind of flexible. And the more compelling you convey your value, the easier it is to negotiate for your salary. I mean, if you can help a company see that you're going to provide them with, your support is going to help them save $3 million. I mean, shoot, hiring you at $250,000 is a freaking bargain. And that's how we got to help people see. You're also going to face all sorts of interview traps. I call them interview traps, because I use them too sometimes. Interview traps, just to see if somebody's going to reveal that. Are you going to reveal yourself as some sort of strange George Patton and Sicily wannabe? So they're gonna put, or another one. One of the traps I hear all the time is, wow, you've got to be, you served for a long time, a lot of combat tours. You must be pretty worn out. And that's one of those sort of classic traps to say, hey, is this person really looking to be productive, or are they looking for a place to cool out? And yeah, I'm just really, I'm really looking for a break and spending more time with my family. Those sort of genuine answers that you might give could signal to a potential employer that, hey, this person isn't looking to be productive, they're looking for a sinecure. So moving from imposter to expert, translating, overcoming those self-limiting beliefs, and then being able to show what sort of value our expertise can provide to an employer, which means we got to do a lot of research before we do an interview of what their problems are, and we'll show you how to do that. Is really important to finding the right role in the right place in the right career field. Okay, so those are the 5 shifts. So of course, get this wrong, and we stay in the resume interview rejection hamster wheel. If you get this wrong, the likelihood is we're just going to leap at the first job because it's a paycheck. We feel like it's a safety thing, and you're going to wind up, if you do take that approach, you're just looking for the job, you're going to probably have a job that you hate, in a culture that you might find goofy or toxic, and you're going to be miserable, and you're going to suffer personally, you're going to suffer professionally, your family's going to suffer. And look, a lot of people get this wrong because employee retention rates for senior military leaders is actually really low. And I've spoken with a number of organizations that have veterans programs, and they tell me very straight up that no, what they want, the junior military officer, the first and second term enlistee are much lower risk. Senior military leader, very high risk, very high turnover, and oftentimes, because people haven't taken a good strategic approach, they've had this sort of turnover, and now people know about it in the private sector. And so that's why they see us as a high risk hire. So if you get this wrong and you're not able to convey value to prospective employers, you're going to stay on this hamster wheel. You're going to have a high risk of just getting a job that you can't stand. And that's, you're not going to have the kind of impact that you want to have in a second career. And we're going to suffer in all sorts of different ways. Get this right, and you are far more likely to find the career field, the second career that's right for you, with the kind of service and impact that you want to make, doing the right role in that career field, in the right organization. And when you get those three things right, the right roles in the right organization, for the right career field or impact or mission or whatever you want to call it, you're in a sweet spot. And you are going to have a second career that you love, and all of the sort of bad things that we talked about before that happen when you just take a job turn into good things when you look at this as your second career, as your second half, something that you're going to look forward to, where you're going to contribute, we're going to find that balance that you want. Okay, so all right, so what do we do with all this? Well, it's really your choice. So there's the do-it-yourself approach, which is, hey, just kind of find your way, do some self-study, or just just kind of, I don't know, get after it. And you may find yourself in a good place, and you may not find yourself in a good place. So you can do it yourself, or you can find support. And that support can come in a variety of different ways. Reading books, finding a career coach. I'll talk to you about a course and a mentoring program that we're going to put together. So the bottom line is that oftentimes, I mean, the entire physical fitness industry is based on having coaches, and based on having accountability partners that help you achieve your fitness goals. There's an organization called Vistage that is like CEO groups, and Vistage exists because people do better when they're surrounded by people who are their peers that hold them accountable. And through that sort of process, when you combine some structure and accountability and a group of people that you exchange ideas with, then things become very, very powerful. Things tend to work out better in your favor. And this is a huge transition, going from the top of one profession probably into the top of another, is extraordinarily difficult. Not many people do it. I mean, when you think about it, how many cardiologists become, I don't know, intel battalion commanders or tank battalion commanders? I mean, it just doesn't happen. And we are going from the top of this profession to the top of a very different one. And taking a strategic approach is key to doing it right and finding the best fit for you. Okay, so I mentioned a little bit about this mentor group, calling it the Win the First Battle mentor group. So mainly for senior military leaders who want to move to the private sector. It is a 16-week mentoring program. So we have 8 bi-weekly sessions. I'll include a few guest experts on some particular subjects, but we get together every other week. You've got a course that's got sort of 6 modules plus an intro module and a final concluding module that we go through, and it takes you step by step through this process of dealing with all 5 of these different mind shifts. You've got worksheets that we're gonna turn in, and I'm gonna help you kind of think through this and work through this. Of course, if you join this mentor program, you'll have unlimited email access to me. I'll also have like weekly sort of mentor clinic hours. So 30 minutes, boom, You schedule a time in that 30-minute block, and we just have a private conversation. Of course, all of this group is confidential. We'll have a confidential LinkedIn group where we can share some of these documents and ideas and best practices and stuff back and forth. Of course, with all of the content that you'll get, you'll have 24/7 lifetime access. I keep putting like bonus stuff in there that's helpful for business leaders. That's going to be helpful for you when you get into business. I'm limiting this to 12 people because if it gets too big, then it just gets out of control. So 12 people only, and I'm going to begin it on May 18th, and it will go for 16 weeks at every other week. Include your spouse on this. Have your spouse go through this journey because we're going to be asking you things, reflective questions that you may not have had to answer before, or that maybe you've answered before, but now you have to answer in a different context. And so having your spouse join with you on this is be hugely beneficial. Okay, so here's kind of what the 8 meetings look like. So meeting 1, introduction and pre-work. Meeting number 2 is going to determine your who. So your servant leader archetype. Don't worry, we can do this in 8 questions. You don't need MBTI or TTISI or predictive index or anything like that. This is simple, and it helps you really home in on how you serve your organizations. Meeting number 3 is about your how, the values and principles that drive you, so you don't wind up in a place that you find goofy or toxic. Meeting number 4 is about your post-military why. What's your compelling sense of purpose? Talk about this sort of autonomy, mastery, purpose, and then the other factors around it: family, interest, community. So we're going to help you develop that. Module number 4, we're going to take that. We're going to create your authentic value proposition. And this module alone actually will probably get you off the resume interview rejection hamster wheel permanently. Module number 5 is how do you develop your top prospects? So this is where we go from like spraying and printing resumes to being a sniper and finding the right prospects, the right fit prospects for us. Meeting number 7 is how to handle rejection traps, how to overcome these sort of self-limiting beliefs, and how to negotiate effectively so you get the salary and benefits that you and your family deserve. The last thing we want to do is get tripped up in the finish line. And then meeting number 8, we're going to wrap up, talk about your action plans, best practices, etc. Okay, so so here's an example of what module 1 looks like, and each module is kind of laid out like this, kind of step by step by step by step by step. And we also have a rookie mistake. So one rookie mistake is being the I can do it all utility infielder. I talked a little bit about my experience trying to be the utility infielder. So you're more likely to find that soul-sucking job if you just say, I can do anything. So when you seek out roles that play to your natural strengths, you're going to be happier, have more energy, you're going to be more productive, of greater value to an organization. So each of the modules are laid out like that. And if this is something of interest to you, Nicole, could you just paste my email into the chat room, please? So if something in this kind of mentor group is of interest to you, just email me. I'll email you a PDF with more details about all of this, and then we'll have a conversation. So why be in this mentor group? Well, you're going to get the step-by-step process I laid out. You're going to be able to serve with authenticity in a second career that you love, doing things that intersects with your who, your how, and your why. When you do that, you're going to boost your impact, and you're going to boost your levels of energy. You're going to be able to eliminate the self-limiting beliefs that are likely to hold you back. You're going to find the right prospects for you, the right roles in the right career fields and the right organizations. You're going to be able to learn ways to translate your extraordinary experiences the last 20 to 30 years into value that makes sense for your prospects. And you've got to do that in a unique way with each one. There's no sort of formula for that. Learn how to handle interview traps so we don't trip up at the finish line. We talked about negotiating smartly, and you just have the peace of mind that, look, I'm taking a strategic approach to this. I'm really thinking through this transition hard. My spouse is right there with me, or members of my family are right there with me. And we're in this together. Okay, and also all of my stuff comes with what I call a double guarantee. So 30-day, no questions asked. If you don't like the program, at the end of 30 days, just tell me. Like, Chris, I don't like the shirt you're wearing. I'm not getting anything out of this program. I don't have time to do the work or whatever. And just do that within 30 days, 100% refund, no questions asked. I also give you a results guarantee. So if you're doing the work and you're just not seeing results after like 90 days, so I'll just keep working with you until you do. My success, your success is my success on a program like this. So I'm going to bust my ass to hold you accountable and help you be successful, because I want you to be successful, because I want you to tell other people about this program so more of the right people come in. So that's why I give these double guarantees.
Hey, Chris,
Okay.
we have a couple of questions here.
Okay. Go for it.
The first one is, well, both of them are from Kevin, but his first question goes back to point number 5 that you discussed earlier. Does this tie into the idea that is usually brought up in Soldier for Life transition program, that your first job after the military is a transition job? And then his second question is, well, this is the first time that we're doing the course starting May 18, but for people that may not be retiring until next year, you know, is this going to be a regular event, annual event, what have you?
Yeah. Okay. So great questions. Thanks, Kevin. So the first one is, you know, I don't buy it. Not for a senior leader. You know, that your first job is a transition job. I mean, just write it off. Just take anything. I mean, what that approach says is just take any job, get your feet wet in the private sector, and you know, and then you'll figure out what you really want to do. I mean, that just doesn't compute to me. And quite frankly, that kind of advice is so damaging for people in our shoes, because I mentioned that we're considered to be a high-risk hire, especially in COVID-19 now, where employers are like, they're not hiring, and if they are hiring, they're gonna go for the lowest possible risk. And so when they see, you know, okay, this person spent 20 to 30 years in the military, that demographic tends to have a high turnover rate because they approach their first job as discovery learning. I mean, who in their right mind is going to make a $500,000 discovery learning hire? So that's why you got to be really strategic about this. And the more people know that you've really thought through this and that you're getting after it, and you're comfortable in your authenticity and the value that you bring, and you know the kind of impact that you want to make in the right career field with the right kind of organization, they're going to say, okay, this person's got their act together. This person's not just throwing a bunch of stuff up on the wall. This is somebody I can trust to hire. So I'm saddened to hear that Soldier for Life is saying that to to people. The second question is a really good one. I do plan to do this course periodically. I'm going to start at May 18th just to give people a chance to, you know, kind of do the runway and get into it. I tell you that for most people who I speak with, starting a year out from transition is actually really important. So you can have thought through this well. You know, shoot, if I could do it all over again. I mean, I led with my face in my transition. I was working in the Pentagon. I mean, pulling, 12 plus hour days. And yeah, I was fortunate because I went right from, doing that job as a military officer to doing that job as a senior civilian. But then when I left government permanently, when I resigned from the government, I just, I was still in one of these high pressure jobs. In fact, I'd just come back from Afghanistan, and I didn't take the time to go through it. And I got very lucky starting my own business. It was the right thing to do for me. But so starting that process as early as you can, there are great benefits to you. There's another question, Nicole.
No, Jeff just had to leave, so he just wanted to thank you for the webinar.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Great having you there, and it's been a while since history class at West Point. Okay, so this is what we want to avoid: the hamster wheel. This is what we want to be: living large and feeling very good about our transition. Okay, so not anybody can sign up. In fact, nobody can just sign up for the course. So we've all heard of caveat emptor, buyer beware. There's also a thing called caveat venditor, which is seller beware. So I don't let anybody into a mentor group because I have a very strict no jerks rule, of course. And I just, I want to make sure that people are in the program for the right reason, are going to contribute. And so the process, if you're interested in the mentor course, is just email me saying, hey, I'm interested in this. We'll schedule a time to talk. And if this feels right for you and it feels right for me, then we'll go forward. But if it doesn't feel like the right fit for you and somebody doesn't feel like the right fit for me, then we won't. And it's really important for both of us. So that would be the process to get into the mentor group. Testimonial for somebody. So John was my guinea pig, just going through the course curriculum. He's still going through it. But this is what he said: this course has helped me zero in on my next calling. I love the reflective portions because they help you look forward to your next career so you can find the right fit for you. The course also helped me avoid accepting jobs that were not right. Having a step-by-step process has been an essential part of my transition. Thanks, John. He's kind of in the process now of going through the content. Okay, so final question. Which picture best describes your top takeaway from the webinar today? So we're going to go back to these pictures. Which one best describes your top takeaway from today? Go ahead and post that in the chat room and what the picture is and what it means to you.
We've got Candace replying, thumbs up. Kevin, keep rowing. The guy in the canoe. The eye seeing more clearly away ahead, the spiral, becoming more focused. Yeah, all great input.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. That's great news. And hopefully this has given you some kind of good waypoints just to think about your transition and how you're going to approach it, because a strategic approach is key. Again, this is the impact of the program, the mentor program that we've got that's going to start up on May 18th. Be able to help you do all of this step-by-step process, serve with authenticity, boost your impact because you're doing something that aligns with your strengths, getting rid of those self-limiting beliefs, finding the right companies, right roles that are right for you, putting your vast experiences into value that's compelling for your prospective employers, having more energy, having that kind of balance that you're looking for, being able to handle the interview traps, negotiate smartly, and just have the peace of mind. And please, if you're going to sign up, spouses welcome, because it's an important thing to go through with your spouse. Again, those are the sort of double guarantees that I give. So I'm going to take all the risk on this. 30-day, no questions asked. Don't like it, 100% refund. Results guarantee. If you're not seeing results after 90 days, I work with you until you do, or I'll say I can't help, and I'll refund. But part of the reason why I do the qualifying calls is because I want to make sure that I only take people on who I think are going to be successful. So that's, I guess that's a way to mitigate risk. Okay, so we talked about the major challenges to a second career. We talked about ways to take a strategic approach and the 5 key mindset shifts to make that happen, and a little bit about the mentor program. Okay, so the next step is, if you're interested in this, is just to email me. I'll send you a PDF that breaks everything down, and then we'll have a conversation and see if this is a good fit for each one of us. Okay, I am going to stand by. That's the end of the webinar. So I'm just going to stand by and take your questions, and I'll stand by as long as anybody's got questions. But I really appreciate you being here on this webinar. I'm probably going to do this again in the next, I don't know, within the next week. So I'll let you know when that is. And if you get value from this, please share it with other folks. I'd appreciate that, because I want to help as many people as possible make this transition right. And just if you see any